What's up, guys? This is Devin with Light and Flow Detail. Today we're working on a 65 Mustang in my shop, and we're not just doing any typical detail on this girl. We're doing probably the most intense type of detailing that you can do as a detailer. What I mean by that is we're actually taking some sandpaper, we're leveling out the clear coat and making it as smooth as possible, and then we're going to buff it out and polish it out and make a nice clean finish. So I'm gonna get right into it, and what I have a tape line here on the paint for is this section of the car has not been sanded at all. The top layers have already been sanded and polished, and I'm going to show you guys why we sand to begin with. What's the point of it? Why don't I just jump right into the buffer and start buffing the paint up and chopping? So the reason I put a tape line is so we can actually show the indication between the before and after to hopefully pick it up in the camera better. And again, why are we wet sanding? Well, we're removing texture from the paint. We're not just removing imperfections such as scratches and swirls and such. See if I can locate my sandpaper that I just cut up here. So all in all, to do that, to get texture out of the paint so you can get a more clarity, flat finish, you actually have to go in and do some sanding. And wet sanding is preferable when you're trying to buff it afterwards, because when it's wet, it allows the sand marks to come out easier, and it keeps the clear coat that you're sanding away out of your sandpaper so it doesn't clump up as fast and cause you more imperfections when you go to sand. So there is techniques to this. We might talk about that in a later video, but right now we're just showing you why we do this. So I'm going to take it to our paper, or take it to our paint here. I will say, when you sand, you're not using pressure. You're just allowing the block to move across the surface, and your fingers are just guiding what's going on. And I'm not just sanding just back and forth, back and forth. It's kind of at an angle. Like I said, I'm not trying to go too into depth about sanding techniques, but that is what we're doing here. I'm not going to do this whole entire panel. I'm just going to try to kind of just show as much as I can towards the edge of the finish, so when we take the tape off, it's hopefully a dramatic difference in this middle portion and section here. But what we're literally doing right now is we're taking off layers of the clear coat faster than if we were going to buff it, because that's what you're doing when you're buffing the paint too. You're taking off layers of the clear coat. It just doesn't turn white and chalky like this because all of this clear coat actually goes into the pad itself. That's why you want to keep your pads clean when you go and you start polishing paint. So it's going to milk up like that. You want to clean your surface, check your work, and all right. Can you see in the camera here, Dalen? Pretty good. Is there a way to see, like, or can we maybe bring up close to show, maybe on the phone or something, so I want to show them after they sand that this texture over here, that if you want to get the texture out, this has got to go away, and this is ready to go, but this over here isn't, basically. So let me know when I start talking. So as you can see here, guys, this is our finish after doing, I forgot to tell you, I'm using 2000 grit to start with here. As you can see here in the middle, it's a nice even gray finish, but as you can see on the outside where we didn't sand as much, it's still got these bumpy waves. And that bumpiness is the actual texture in the clear coat that hasn't gotten sanded out yet. So that's how you can know if you're getting all your texture finished when you go to check your work. That's what you need to be looking for, is all of this texture flat like this middle section. So we don't stop here with sanding though. So we don't stop here with sanding. We go and we finish at a higher grit. Our higher grit and our finishing grit is going to be 3000. Same block. Same kind of technique, just going right over these same scratches. This is going to help get them out easier when we go to buff them. We're not really worrying about removing texture anymore. We're just worried about smoothing out these deeper scratches that we used to remove the texture. And now we're just making everything nice and easy so we can go and buff it out. I like to go from the outside in with my sanding because it just makes it easy to come right back up through the middle and know where you've been. Kind of like coloring a book, filling in the edges and then going into the middle. It is a little bit of a process to do this. It takes time. It's not something, painters don't like to do this. This car was repainted, and that's why I'm doing it to this, because the painter, it's just not his favorite thing to do after he's done all the body work and the painting. And he's just got so much work, he's a one-man show like me, that this actually holds him back, because this takes a few days. This takes hours. Could take anywhere from 20 to 40 to 60 hours depending on the finish and the car that you're dealing with. So after you got that process done, again, you go and you wipe her off. And as you're going to see here, the gray is even lighter gray now in the paint from your sanding marks, because that 3000 really cleans it up, makes everything nice and smooth. So now this right here is going to be really easy to buff out compared to if we try to just sit there and buff out the 2000 sanding marks that we originally started with to remove the texture. Probably have to go over it a few times. This, I should be able to go over it with one motion with the rotary and get these scratches out. So let's go about doing that. Before I do that, I'm going to grab a different microfiber because this one has wet clear coat on it. We don't want to wipe a clean surface with that. Better microfiber, softer even, so this really won't scratch the paint. These are Korean profile towels. These are just a Costco towel. Believe it or not, I actually haven't scratched the paint yet with those. Depends what paint you're using. There is mist behind the Costco towels. Make sure your pad's clean, and to do that, just blow her out. Real important. You don't want your pads to be clogged up when you go and start buffing. You won't get as good of a finish. So, layer a bead down. A little thick there, but that's fine. Usually do want a little more compound than if you were just buffing clear coat without sounding marks, because it is a little more aggressive of a process. Start slow, rotary. Make sure you don't sling stuff everywhere. So believe it or not, I'm actually going to leave that polish right on there for the making of the video, because I didn't get it ready, but I'm going to need to go grab a DA polisher and actually finish this paint correctly, because if I just finished it with that machine, it's going to leave over a bit of a haze, which comes what's called rotary buffer trails or holograms, and it just gets left over with that machine, especially on a wool pad. You can finish it down if I had a foam pad like this one, but this machine is just way easier to finish with. So that's what we're gonna do. So again, we've sanded this with 2 stages with 2000 grit, and then finished it with 3000 grit to smooth out all those heavier sanding marks. The 2000 grit was used to get texture out. The 3000 grit was to smooth out those heavier sanding marks, to smooth out the texture. Then we rotary cut it, which got out the sanding marks. And now we have to go through and polish it, because like I said, if you don't go through with a finer polishing stage after you use a heavy aggressive cutting stage, especially with the rotary, you're going to leave over a little bit of a haze, a little bit of trails in the paint, which are called holograms or buffer trails. And to get those out, use finer polish compared to a heavier polish. This is a cutting compound. This is a polish, finishing polish. Foam pad, this is a medium, or sorry, this is a polishing pad. It's not quite a finishing pad, but this paint doesn't need a complete finish quite yet. Stick this one right on the paint, low speed again. This machine shouldn't take as long to do this step now that we've spent time on all our other steps. Doesn't take too much to get these bumper trails out. Not too much. And the reason I left the compound on there after I did the rotary step and jumped right into the polishing is because sometimes when you leave your heavier, the residue of your initial compound stage step, if you leave the residue on there and you go right over it with your polishing step, you're kind of combining two different ingredients into one, and it sometimes creates a better finish. Sometimes creates a worse finish, but you don't know until you try. And if it creates a worse finish and it's not good, just get a new pad and just do the polishing stage and don't leave the compound on there for your initial areas, basically. Sometimes detailing is an experimenting game. You gotta experiment with your whatever you're working on to see if it's gonna work out or not. So, see if we got a difference out of this paint or not. Take off this tape here, and I'm actually going to shut this light off because it's hard to see. Wish that wasn't there. Get that out of there. So it's very hard to pick up. Can you see the bumpiness in the paint? It's very hard to pick up, but it clears up as you go into this area. It's a very distinct difference. The line is right here. There's bumpiness on this paint, and there's not as much, if not any, on this side of the paint right here.
It's like a mirror.
And if you don't know what, that's orange peel. If you don't know what orange peel is and you can't see it on the camera, just go look up a video. They probably actually show it better close up and better lighting, or just a painter will show you exactly some rough orange peel. This isn't very bad orange peel. In my true light, you can't even see it really. Well, you can actually. Bring that back, Dylan. Point the camera right on the light right here. So you can see in the light, it's just not quite as clear to where you come over here. And it's almost like a complete reflection. Versus here, it's kind of a bumpy reflection. And that's why you sand and polish. Sand, buff, cut, and then polish. All in all, that's why we sand. That's why we buff and cut, and that's why we finish and polish, to get as clairvoyant of a finish out of paint as possible. Now this is not needed with every car. This is a very, very specified service for specified customers and cars that want it and need it. This paint needed it. Usually when a car is repainted, especially on an aftermarket paint job, not an OEM paint job, on an old school car especially, they want the paint looking as flat and like a mirror as possible. On an OEM car, on your daily driver, you're kind of just more or less worried about it, you know, being shiny, and some people don't even care about the swirls and scratches, but then there is people who care, so we can get those out. But you don't have to sand to get those out. This is primarily to get texture out of paint, and that's why we sand. So if you're not actually trying to get texture out of paint, probably don't sand. Yes, you can use sanding to remove thicker scratches, but you also want to know what you're doing in that process too, and maybe we'll make a video later on to explain that. For now though, we're just removing texture. What's up guys? This is Devin Madu again with Light and Flow Detail. Thank you if you made it all the way to the end of the video and for watching the progress that we're making on the 65 Mustang. Again, to recap what we did today, we did some wet sanding, which is these hazy marks that are left over after wet sanding. Again, we started with 2000 grit, finished with 3000 grit, rotary cut it, and finished it with a DA refinement stage. And what we're left with after the finish is this gray chalkiness over to that marvelous clarity finish. And see how it's flat? You can almost just see the light right through that green speckle. No more bumpiness, no more orange peel, no imperfections. Again, going from that to that. If you guys like this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram at Light and Flow Auto Detail, Facebook Devin Madu, and also Light and Flow Auto Detail. Snapchat's Devin Allen 95. Again, shout out to Dalen Ng with Dalen Films for the creation of this video, and I hope you guys have a blessed day.
Bye.
Heck yeah.